Dolphins Today family, what's going on? I need your help. You've probably heard the news, but the Dolphins can no longer use the hashtag FinsUp. That means we're going to have a contest. It is up to Dolphins Today and the Dolphins Today family to come up with the Dolphins new team hashtag. So comment your hashtag suggestions below, and guess what? I am going to read my top 10 new Dolphins team hashtags on a show later this week. So let me know, what do you think the Dolphins new team hashtag should be? We'll tell you why they can't use the hashtag on this edition of Dolphins Today. And welcome into this edition of Dolphins Today. I am your host, Jake Riepma, and it's oftentimes that we do call on all of our loyal viewers of Dolphins Today, but especially important in this video because, as we mentioned, there's been news this week that the Miami Dolphins will no longer be allowed to use the hashtag and motto FinsUp due to Margartiaville in Orlando owning the trademark since 2019. So if you haven't gotten your comments in yet with what that new team hashtag should be, do so now. And when I first saw this, I thought, there's no way. Come on, you got to be kidding me. And then, as the internet always does, they came up with the official trademark filing of Margartiaville and the serial number and the registration number and this, that, and the other. And I thought, okay, maybe this is for real. So the Dolphins can no longer use the hashtag FinsUp, so we got to do our best to come up with a new team hashtag for the Miami Dolphins. So get your suggestions in below. And when I first thought no more Fins Up, I wondered, did that mean no more Mike McDaniel running around with the Fins Up after interviews? I'm going to miss that. Hopefully the trademark doesn't prevent Mike McDaniel from running around with the Fins Up, because that's one of my favorite sights to behold. But I know we're in the offseason now, and it's more important than ever before to get those hashtag suggestions in, because we got to help the Aqua and Orange out with a new hashtag. Now, with that being said, because it's sad news, I do want to give a little double thumbs down, boo, this, that, and the other, because with no longer being able to use the hashtag FinsUp, that's sad. So go ahead and type RIP in the comments. We have a funeral for the hashtag FinsUp. But with that said, there's actual news and information to get into that's a little bit more important. So put your thinking cap on, dial it in, buckle up, because Mike McDaniel has considered giving up a play calling duties. This was a story from earlier this week when Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier were addressing the media for the first time in the offseason. And the question raised an interesting point. And the quote that followed from Mike McDaniel regarding the idea of giving up play calling duties is somewhat interesting. He said, "Nothing is off the table, ever. I think we failed to reach our goals this season, so play calling wouldn't live outside that." And if you're like me, this answer, it certainly didn't end the discussion. He didn't say, "No way, Jose," pound the desk and yell at the reporter. He said, nothing's off the table. So when you consider that, the fact that nothing is off the table as it relates to play calling duties, I got to ask you, do you want a new play caller in the 2024 season for the Miami Dolphins? We'll really dive into, because I think there is an argument on both sides, but I've seen the comments. Some people were pretty fed up with the offense and Mike McDaniel's play calling specifically, and let me know down in the comments. If you want a new play caller, type Y for yes or N for no. And when you look at this Miami Dolphins offense, it's very easy, and I'm guilty of this, hands up. And if you've watched Dolphins Today, you know I've pointed to these metrics time and time again. The Dolphins were first in total offense, second in scoring offense. So you might be saying, Riepma, that's crazy. Why would we want Mike McDaniels to give up play calling? But obviously there's more to the story than just the final rankings from the 2023 regular season, because what's the narrative that followed this team and really never went away? And I don't think you can call it a narrative anymore, because there's proof in the pudding, there's substance to it. They did not perform against teams with winning records. Look at the Dolphins' offense against playoff teams. 15.1 points per game. That certainly was not second in the NFL. 316.8 total yards per game, way less than against teams with winning or with losing records, obviously. Less passing yards, less rushing yards, and more turnovers per game against teams with winning records. But when you kind of summarize all that, give me the Spark Notes version, Riepma. What was this Miami Dolphins offense? Well, they averaged nearly double the points against losing teams than they did against winning teams. And there's a couple of games you can point to as statistical outliers. Obviously, the 70 burger that they put on the Denver Broncos in Week 3 is one of them. And early in the season, they really did beat up on bad teams. Look at the game against the Chargers. The list goes on. This Miami Dolphins team made its living this season by beating up on lesser opponents. It's as simple as that. And so if you get down into the nitty-gritty and you say this Dolphins offense team has to be better against playoff caliber teams, you certainly have a point to make. That's why I do think it's an interesting discussion in the comments below if you think Mike McDaniel should give up play calling duties, and to his credit, didn't rule it out. Now, want to wrap up with a little bit more lighthearted story, because who doesn't love some good uniform talk? Am I right? If you're like me, you agree that the Miami Dolphins have the best uniforms in the National Football League. And I found this interesting. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk went on his show and said that the Miami Dolphins should wear their throwback uniforms full time. And that means not just once or twice a year. The quote was particularly intriguing to me from Pro Football Talk this week. He said they need to go back to those uniforms from the 70s. Those uniforms from the 70s are far more intimidating. They are far more badass. I'm telling you, they will be tougher, certainly implying that they'll be tougher and more badass if they wear these uniforms. He's got a point. Those are so fresh. They're awesome. The old school logo, the stripes on the sleeves, you got Jalen Ramsey repping it there. But if you're superstitious, and some would say, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious, the Dolphins, 2-0 this season when wearing those throwbacks. And they wore the white throwbacks once, as you see in the image there with Jalen Ramsey, but they also wore the aqua throwbacks against the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas Eve in Week 16. And remember, they won that game, and that game represents the lone win for the Miami Dolphins against a playoff team in 2023 while wearing the throwback. So again, the proof is in the pudding, people. It's not that complicated. Wear the throwbacks, beat good teams. I agree with Florio. It's time to wear those throwbacks full time, but I want to know what you think, and maybe I'm making too big of a deal of it. Either way, you got to let me know in the comments, what uniforms do you prefer? Type T for the throwbacks. Hint, hint, that's the correct answer. Or type C for the current uniforms. And nothing against the current uniforms. I think the aqua and orange is the best color wave in the NFL as far as uniforms, helmets, and that is concerned. But the throwbacks, as Mike Florio put it, are just so badass. That's as simple as I can make it. And the Dolphins, at times, lacked a little bit of toughness this year. But you know when they didn't lack toughness? The 2 times they wore those throwback uniforms. So it's as simple as that. I have fixed the Dolphins' offseason problems and their inability to beat good teams. It's real simple. You wear the throwback uniforms. Hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning into this edition of Dolphins Today. As always, we remind you to subscribe to the channel because, yes, it's the offseason. We talk some serious stuff. We have some fun on this, and then we cover every angle of the Miami Dolphins. When breaking news happens, we've got you covered. Shout out to my producer today, Jeffrey Cooperstein, on the ones and twos, helping you bring Dolphins content to the airwaves. And for that, we appreciate everything he does for this program. He's the heart and soul of this program. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Dolphins Today. Couldn't do it without you. Stay tuned to Dolphins Today. Subscribe to the channel. And I can't wait to keep on reading each and every one of those hashtag suggestions. So if you made it to the end of the video and you haven't gotten your hashtag suggestion in yet, do it now. Also, appreciate you tuning in to Dolphins Today. And as always, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on Dolphins Today.